Cyber Threat Brief for August 7, 2026. Malware can silently abuse Windows Hello keys for persistent Entra ID access without triggering prompts. NatJack attacks manipulate NAT tables to hijack TCP sessions across Windows and Linux. Microsoft patched critical Azure vulnerabilities while ransomware groups continue targeting healthcare and financial sectors. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Next section, critical alerts. Malware can abuse Windows Hello for business keys. For persistent Entra ID access, researcher Dirk-Jan Mollema demonstrated that malware running in a signed-in Windows session can silently use the victim's Windows Hello for business key to authenticate to Microsoft Entra ID without triggering biometric prompts or extracting private keys. The attacker can establish longer-term cloud access, register a controlled device, obtain a primary refresh token valid for 90 days, and add authentication methods where policies permit. On TPM-backed systems, Windows ticketing keeps private key operations available while the user is signed in, allowing code running as the user to request signed authentication data. The technique treats Windows Hello for business keys as FIDO2 passkeys through WebAuthn, and the 5-minute Entra ID challenge is not bound to a session, user, or tenant. Action: monitor for Windows Hello for business sign-ins with empty device ID claims. Hunt for unexpected device registrations in Entra ID. Code execution in a signed-in session is required, so standard endpoint protection remains critical. The finding exposes a limit of phishing-resistant authentication when malware operates inside the authenticated session. Sources: The Hacker News. NatJack attacks hijack TCP sessions and spoof DNS by manipulating NAT tables. Security researcher Malcolm Stagg disclosed NatJack, an attack class that manipulates network address translation connection state to hijack active TCP sessions, spoof DNS responses, expose mapped ports, and exhaust NAT tables. Presented at Black Hat, USA 2026, the research found affected behavior across Windows and Linux implementations. CVE 2026-56181, CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, 8.3, EPSS, the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, 0.2/15th percentile, affects Windows NAT used by Hyper-V. CVE 2026-63913, CVSS 8.2, EPSS 0.6/46th percentile, affects Linux NetFilter Contract. The attack generally requires privileged access to a system behind the same NAT as the victim. There's no single patch for the broader attack class. Action: apply available Windows and Linux updates. Linux fixed stable releases include 5.10.259, 5.15.210, 6.1.176, 6.6.143, 6.12.93, 6.18.35, 7.0.12, and 7.1. Microsoft patched Windows 11 24H2 before 26,100, 8,875, 25H2 before 26,200, 8,875, 26H1 before 28,000, 2,525, and Windows Server 2025 before 26,100, 33,158. Separate untrusted workloads from trusted systems sharing NAT infrastructure. Encrypt traffic even within internal networks. Sources: The Hacker News. Next section, ransomware claims, last 48H. 26 claims tracked across 4 groups in the last 48 hours. These are unverified claims from ransomware leak sites, not confirmed breaches. Next section, ransomware and extortion. UNC 6671 rebrands. Multi-brand phishing extortion targets financial services and enterprise cloud. Google Threat Intelligence Group reports UNC 6671 continues conducting data theft extortion despite the alleged retirement of the BlackFile extortion brand in May 2026. Telemetry and infrastructure analysis reveal the group has diversified operations across multiple extortion fronts, including Redact, Pink, Helix, and Falcon. UNC 6671 continues to rely on voice phishing and targets financial services and enterprise cloud environments. Sources: Google Threat Intelligence. Belarusian ransom cartel mastermind gets 16 years in prison. Maxim Silnikow, 40, the Belarusian creator and administrator of the ransom cartel ransomware, was sentenced to 16 years in prison in the U.S. Silnikow was extradited from Poland to the U.S. in August 2024. Sources: Data breaches, Net. Cardiology Associates of Port Huron, allegedly hacked in June. Cardiology Associates of Port Huron remains silent, although they were allegedly hacked and had patient data stolen in June by the Orova ransomware group. The group is one of approximately 4 dozen new threat actor groups targeting U.S. medical entities in the first half of 2026. Sources: data breaches. Net. Dutch retailers Bol and de Bijenkorf warn of data breach. Online retailer Bol warned customers about a data breach involving one of its logistics partners. Unauthorized parties accessed the partner's systems, and some customer information may have been viewed or copied. Bol's own systems were not affected. Leaked data has appeared on dark web forums. Sources: data breaches. Net. Team PCP linked to Riddy's attacks dating back to 2020. Oligo Security Research uncovered that Team PCP has been active since 2020, compromising internet-facing infrastructure years before targeting the software supply chain. The connection is supported by overlapping domains, malware deployment paths, staging techniques, and operational tradecraft. The group has targeted Ray, Docker, Riddy's, and React environments. Recent campaigns include Shadow Ray 2.0, hijacking AI infrastructure into self-propagating botnets, and Tornado Status, targeting exposed Riddy's servers to deliver cryptocurrency miners. New malware variants observed as recently as March 2026 include wiper functionality that checks for Iran time zone and executes destructive code. Sources: The Hacker News. Chain Drop. Self-propagating NPM worm Palo Alto Unit 42 published analysis of Chain Drop, an NPM supply chain worm that extracts GitHub actions, runner secrets, and uses Ethereum smart contracts for command and control routing. Sources: Unit 42. Canadian man pleads guilty in Snowflake extortions. Connor Riley Mauka, 26, of Kitchener, Ontario, pleaded guilty to computer fraud and conspiracy to hack and extort more than 165 organizations that used Snowflake cloud data storage. Mauka also admitted to stealing call and text history records of more than 100 million AT&T customers. Sources: Krebs on Security. Next section: Windows/Active Directory Security. CVE 2026-62869, Azure Entra ID spoofing vulnerability. Insufficient verification of data authenticity in Azure Entra ID allows an authorized attacker to perform spoofing over a network. No additional details or CVSS score available in Microsoft's advisory. Sources: MSRC Security Update Guide. CVE 2026-68823, Azure Confidential Ledger, remote code execution, exposed dangerous method or function in Azure Confidential Ledger, allows an authorized attacker to execute code over a network. No additional details or CVSS score available. Sources: MSRC Security Update Guide. CVE 2026-62836, Azure SQL Managed Instance Elevation of Privilege Improper Restriction of Communication Channel to intended endpoints in Azure SQL Managed Instance allows an unauthorized attacker to elevate privileges over a network. Sources: MSRC Security Update Guide. CVE 2026-49163, Application Insights Profiler Elevation of Privilege Improper Limitation of a Pathname to a Restricted Directory, Path Traversal, in Application Insights Profiler allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges over a network. Sources: MSRC Security Update Guide. CVE 2026-56161, Azure Logic Apps Information Disclosure Improper Access Control in Azure Logic Apps allows an authorized attacker to disclose information over a network. Sources: MSRC Security Update Guide. Next section: General Security News. AI Recommendation Poisoning. How Ask AI buttons silently alter LLM memory. Microsoft Security cataloged AI recommendation poisoning in February 2026, identifying 31 companies across 14 industries deploying it, with more than 50 distinct prompts observed. The technique manipulates long-term memory in ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Grok by embedding hidden prompt injection payloads inside Ask AI buttons on marketing and competitor comparison pages. When a logged-in user clicks the button, a pre-filled query executes immediately with no confirmation, instructing the AI to permanently save the vendor's domain as a trusted source. The technique is formally tracked in MITRE ATT and CK Atlas as AML. T0080, memory poisoning, related to AML. T0051, LLM prompt injection. Sources: The Hacker News. Claude Code and Gemini CLI flaws let GitHub issue reach CI workflow secrets. A GitHub issue opened by an account with no repository privileges was enough to execute code on the CI runners behind Anthropic's and Google's own coding agent repositories. Novi Security ran the attack against each vendor's agent in the default configuration and presented the work at Black Hat USA on August 5. On OpenAI's repository, the attack was enough to hijack the next agent run. Sources: The Hacker News. Interrupt injection attack can bypass Spectre v2 defenses on Intel and AMD CPUS MIT CSAIL researchers Daniel Trujillo and Mengjia Yan disclosed interrupt injection, a technique where an unprivileged Linux program can time a hardware interrupt to land in the gap between a processor sanitizing its branch predictor and the kernel using it. On an AMD Zen 2 machine running Linux 6.14 with every default Spectre v2 mitigation enabled, the researchers demonstrated successful branch predictor repoisoning after defenses ran. Sources: The Hacker News. Apple iCloud Private Relay can expose real IPs through WebKit proxy bypasses. Cybersecurity researchers disclosed a security issue with Apple's iCloud Private Relay tool that can expose a user's real IP address. iCloud Private Relay employs a dual-hop architecture to ensure users' privacy by routing Safari web traffic through two relays so that no single third party, including Apple, can determine where the request originates. Sources: The Hacker News. Crypto.js Week RNG behind $5.7 million in crypto wallet drains. Coinspect identified Crypto.js lib word array random as the weak random number generator behind the IllBloom wallet drains. A function introduced in the JavaScript cryptography library 12 years ago supplied weak entropy that affected wallet apps used to generate recovery phrases. On-chain analysis puts measured theft across two sweeps since late May at a lower bound of $5.7 million across 5 crypto wallet apps. Sources: The Hacker News. Over 4,400 Rockwell PLCs exposed online, 22 found in water attack cities. Forescout found 22 internet-facing Rockwell Automation PLCs in cities hit by recent cyber attacks on U.S. water utilities. 19 used the same mobile carrier network. An August 3 scan counted 4,407 exposed Rockwell controllers worldwide, including 2,844 in the United States. Forescout could not confirm any were compromised. Sources: The Hacker News. Truck brake controller safety recall doubled as hidden security fix. NMFTA research shows a Bendix EC80 brake controller safety recall also patched remote code execution and denial of service vulnerabilities. Sources: Security Week. Next section: Patch Priority. Windows and Linux NAT implementations, CVE 2026-56181, Windows Hyper-V NAT, CVSS 8.3, and CVE 2026-63913, Linux NetFilter Contract, CVSS 8.2. NatJack attacks can hijack TCP sessions. Azure Services, CVE 2026-68823, Confidential Ledger Remote Code Execution, Entra ID Spoofing, SQL Managed Instance Privilege Escalation, Application Insights Path Traversal, Logic Apps Information Disclosure, and 4 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Cisco Catalyst SDWAN and iOS XE, 12 vulnerabilities including 3 with CVSS 9.9 scores. Apply updates from Cisco's Comprehensive Internal Security Review. Linux KVM, CVE 2026-64561, Zapscape flaw, could allow privileged L1 guest code to escape to Linux hosts when nested virtualization is exposed to untrusted guests. Next section: Vulnerability Disclosures. CVE 2026-64561, Zapscape KVM flaw could let privileged L1 guest code escape to Linux hosts. Zapscape, a new Linux kernel vulnerability, could allow an attacker with kernel privileges inside an L1 guest virtual machine to escape KVM isolation and execute code on the host. The risk applies when nested virtualization is exposed to untrusted guests. The flaw affects KVM/x86 is Shadow Memory Management Unit. Sources: The Hacker News. Cisco patches 12 SDWAN and iOS XE flaws, including 3.9 CVSS score bugs. Cisco released updates to address multiple critical security vulnerabilities impacting Catalyst SDWAN and iOS XE software as part of a comprehensive internal security review. The security issues affect Cisco Catalyst SDWAN software regardless of device configuration and Cisco iOS XE software when running in autonomous or controller mode. Sources: The Hacker News. CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, ICS, Industrial Control Systems, Advisories. 3 new ICS advisories published. ICSMA 26281, Medixent Radiant Decom Out of Bounds Right, CVSS 4.3, ICSA 26218-2. Johnson Controls TL280 Broken Cryptographic Algorithm, CVSS 4.1, and ICSA 26218-1, ABB Abilities Xenon Multiple Vulnerabilities, CVSS 7.8. Action: Review CIS advisories for affected products. Medixent Radiant DICOM <= 2025. 2 could crash if a maliciously crafted DICOM file is opened. Johnson Controls TL285. 63 allows access to sensitive information. ABB Abilities Xenon with MongoDB 4. 2 installed has multiple flaws that could allow attackers to bypass security, crash systems, execute unauthorized actions, or compromise data. Sources: CISA. Windows 10 LTSC 2021 has 5 months before security updates cost extra. Windows 10 LTSC 2021 Extended Security Update Meter starts running in January 2027, unless you're on the EOT edition. Sources: The Register. Next section, Trends and Context. Multiple research presentations from Black Hat USA 2026 disclosed fundamental weaknesses in virtualization, NAT implementations, and AI coding agents. The Windows Hello for Business technique and NAT manipulation attacks both exploit legitimate features rather than implementation bugs, highlighting architectural security challenges. Ransomware groups continue rebranding and diversifying operations, with UNC 6671 operating across multiple extortion brands despite announced retirement. Healthcare and financial services remain primary targets for both traditional ransomware and emerging phishing extortion campaigns. That concludes today's cyber threat brief. From Carolina Clear Tech, stay patched, stay vigilant.